Good afternoon, and welcome to Basic Spreadsheets. This is a class put on by the Rutherford County Library System, and it is a class that is about learning some basics about 3 spreadsheet programs. We'll talk about which ones those are here in just a minute. My name is Trey Gwynn. I'm the Technology and Outreach Coordinator for the Rutherford County Library System, and we will be looking today at Microsoft Excel, Google Sheets, OpenOffice, Calc. Now, Microsoft Excel has the most functionality, and it has potential for cloud-based storage. However, it is also the most expensive of the 3 that we're going to talk about today. It is either Microsoft Excel and the other Microsoft Office suite programs are either a one-time cost or a monthly fee that you can pay. However, Microsoft Excel is the mid-range leader in the industry. There are other spreadsheet programs that professionals use more, but Excel is kind of that mid-range. If you have a small business, you probably use Microsoft Excel. Google Sheets is another option. It is free, which is probably its best selling point, in my opinion. Of the 3 that we're going to look at today, it is the most simplified. It has cloud storage built in because it is part of Google Drive, which is just automatically a cloud-based program, and you have access to it if you have a Gmail account. It is entirely web-based, which means that you can pull it up in any browser. And then, of course, it's owned by Google, which means that, every little bit that you do on Google is part of the profile that they make about you, and that means that they know more about you, and you just have to decide whether that's an issue for you or not. In theory, everything that they know about you is going to be anonymized, so it's not like they're taking your secrets, but they are selling your anonymous profile to advertisers. And if that's an issue for you, I totally get it. The third that we're going to look at is OpenOffice Calc. It is also free. In my opinion, it is the least intuitive of the 3. However, it is owned by a nonprofit. It is owned by a nonprofit called Apache Software, and the entire reason that they exist is to offer people free alternatives to Microsoft Office, and so they are the not that the others are immoral in any way, but they are the moral leader of the 3 because they're just doing it for the sake of internet citizens. Now, I may need to move my little. Hold on one second. I'll move my webcam. Boop, boop, boop. Why aren't you moving? Okay. Oh well. I guess I can't. But we have some vocabulary that we're going to cover before we get started. The first is a spreadsheet. A spreadsheet is an electronic document in which data is arranged in rows and columns of a grid and can be manipulated and used in calculations. That's what a spreadsheet is. That's what makes it unique from Microsoft Word or Google Docs or PowerPoint. That is its raison d'etre. What is a row? A row is a range of cells that go across horizontally the spreadsheet. Cells are what the spreadsheet is made out of. Column is a vertical series of cells in your chart, table, or spreadsheet. And then, of course, a sheet is a page within your spreadsheet. Each spreadsheet document can have multiple sheets. It's actually super useful. So like if you are, say, keeping track of charitable donations for 2020, you can have a January sheet, you can have a February sheet, you can have a March sheet, and they're all within the same document so that they're all in the same place. It's really super useful. So like, for example, when I am using Google Sheets for For my class attendance numbers, I will have a 2020 document, and then within that document, I have a sheet for January, a sheet for February, a sheet for March, and that way I can keep it all of my data in one place. Now, if you've ever been in one of my classes, you know that I like to do an anatomy slide for whatever it is we're looking at. And so even though we're looking at 3 different programs, I have an anatomy slide of an Excel spreadsheet. That is because the other 2 programs look pretty much the same. Now, we're going to take a moment to look at all 3 of them as we go and as we're talking about different things. But right now, this is just an Excel spreadsheet, and just keep in mind that most of what you're going to learn here applies to the other 2. So, what you're seeing here is like I said, my anatomy of an Excel spreadsheet. You have a place where the name of the cells goes. You have columns. You have rows. You have you'll notice that the active cell has like a highlighted border so that you know which one you have selected. Behind my camera that I can't move for some reason. Wait, no, I know what I can do. Hold on, wait. Boop, there we go. I'm gone. You can see sheets. You can see where the sheets are there down in the bottom left-hand corner. And there's a little plus sign next to the sheets. That's where you can add new sheets. And you can have I don't know what the limit is, but it's huge, whatever the limit is of number of sheets. I'm back. Hold on one second. So before we move forward, I do want to highlight. Oh, and I'm going to make myself disappear again. Hold on one second. Actually, no. I know what I'll do. Yes. I moved up there. So before we move on, I do want to take a moment to talk about some important navigation key options. One of the best ways to get around a spreadsheet is your mouse, obviously, but if you're inserting data, sometimes it's easier to keep your hands on the keyboard, so you can use the up, down, left, and right arrows to get around on a spreadsheet. That's super useful on a spreadsheet, especially, like I said, if you're like working if you're doing data insertion. That way you don't have to constantly be going back and forth between your mouse and your keyboard, your mouse and your keyboard, your mouse and your keyboard. Home will take you to the current the column A of the current row. So say you're on column Z and you hit home, it'll take you to the A on that row. Control home will take you to A1, which is the very top cell. And all of these are super useful. I'm not going to go run down them, but you can see what each of them does. Now, Excel can take data in multiple different ways. It is perfect for containing data. It can take text data, which is a combination of letters, numbers, and symbols. These are often referred to as text strings. It can take number data, so number data that can be used in a mathematical calculation. It can also do date and time data, and it has commonly recognized formats for date and time values. So whether you do it in the American way, where it's day, month, year, or if you do it in the European way, where it's month, day, year. No, wait. I got those backwards. If you do it in the American way, where it's month, day, year, or do it in the European way, where it's day, month, year. There we go. Got it. Or the whatever way, any of those can be formatted into the program. So when you're entering text and numbers, when you're entering text and numbers, your text and numbers will appear in two different places. They will appear in the active cell that you have selected. They will also appear up in the formula bar. Now, the reason for that, we'll get into that more later, is because one of the things that Excel can do is it can use formulas, and formulas are formulas are one of the most important things that Excel can do. However, they will be secret formulas that are behind the scenes most of the time, and that's why these cells, it's important that the data shows up in two different places. So, for example, let me pull up I'm going to pull up Excel. Boop, here we are. Let me go to my Excel spreadsheet. So, like, for example, when I click on D5 and then type in 7, notice that it shows up in the cell, and then it also shows up here in the formula bar. However, if I were to type in a formula equals control plus control, and then hit enter, notice that now it's showing two different things. It's showing 0, and then it's showing the formula up here, right? And that's because when you type in numbers into your into the formula you made, it's going to complete that formula for you. That's why this distinction between the two is so important. That when you're putting in numerical data, it will show up in two places. When you're putting in formulas, it will do that. It will do things separately, and that's why it does that. Now let's hide Excel again. Data will be truncated if it gets too long. So again, here I'm going to show you with Excel. If I were to type in Trey Gwen, notice I misspelled my own name. No, Trey's not long enough. Okay, well, here we go. See, notice that it is longer than the column is wide. And if I were to type in something else, let's say age, now it has cut off part of Gwen. So that's something that columns will do that rows will not. Rows will match the width. They will match your they will match the size of whatever it is that you're typing in. Also, if you're typing in the same thing regularly, it will offer you to autocomplete what you're typing in, and if you need to put multiple lines of text within a cell, you can hit Alt Enter, and it will let you have multiple lines. So, like, for example, let me pull up my Excel spreadsheet again. If I take where I typed in Trey Gwynn, and I'm going to click between Trey and Gwen, and then I'm going to hit Alt Enter. And now look, see, this is all within one cell, but now it's two rows. Or not two rows, but they're on different levels. So that's how you create a line break with Excel, and it works with both of the other two programs. Working with columns and rows. To make it easier to read, you can modify the size of columns and rows in the worksheet. You can do that in multiple different ways. You can either drag the border to resize. You can double click the border to auto fit whatever's in there. So say you have a 20 long piece of data. If you double click the border, it will change to fit that 20 long. Or you can select whatever cells you need to change the size of, right click on them, go to cell size, and you'll be able to change that. You'll be able to either change the column width or the row height. You just have the option to do either. That's okay. sometimes when you are working with one of these programs, you will have data that you've already entered, and you want to add more data. Now, part of the brilliance of Excel is that any of these spreadsheet programs is that they've set it up so that you can set up your data in whatever way you want, and instead of having to delete rows and columns and then put all of your information back in again, if you have some sort of information that needs to be inserted between stuff that you've already put in, it's easy to do. So for example, let's pull up we're going to pull up OpenOffice Calc, which again, this works with all of the programs that we're looking at. I'm just using OpenOffice as a separate thing. So right now I'm going to put in Trey and then Gwen, and then say that you decide, okay, well, I've been collecting people's first and last names. I also happen to have their middle names, and I'd like to put that into my spreadsheet. You can go up here to the top of the column, and you can say Insert Column, and it will insert a row between the two. See how Trey and Gwen are in separate spots now? So say you want to do the same thing. I'm going to put Trey in again. See the autocomplete there? And say I wanted to put a row between Trey, Gwen, and Trey. Go over here, click on Insert Rows, bang. Separate space. Easy peasy lemon squeezy. And all three programs work that way. To delete rows and columns, you can do the exact same thing. However, I do want to make a distinction. When you're deleting a row or a column, you have to make sure that you're doing what you're making the choice that you want to make. And that's a weird way of saying it, Trey. I don't know why you said it that way. The thing is, you have to think of all the cells in a spreadsheet as little buckets of data. When you delete the cells, when you delete a row and column or column of cells, you are getting rid of the buckets. You're throwing the buckets out, and new buckets will come to replace them. But they are new buckets that that don't have any of the formatting that you put into them. You can also clear cells. So in that instance, you are taking the cells and you are just emptying what was inside of them, and the bucket's still there. It's just empty now. So for example, let me pull up my. This time we'll do Google Sheets. So here's Sheets. And again, I'm going to write Trey, and I'm going to write, just as an example, I'm going to put one here and one there. So now you'll know I can either clear that cell, right? I'm going to undo that so the Trey's still there. That's when I delete it, the bucket is still there. The bucket for the information is still there, but what I had in it is not there anymore. Or I can delete it. So if I right click on so if I come over here and right click on where the row is, and I delete it, now it's gone, and you'll notice that the ones are now right next to each other because I got rid of those buckets. Now, there are infinite buckets, but it means that the ones are next to each other because that row is gone. And I hope that makes sense, because it's really important that you keep in mind that there's a difference between deleting the buckets and getting rid of the cells, and in emptying the buckets. A huge difference. And as Excel gets more complex, that is a distinction that is very important. So now we're going to take a look at some more complex pieces of the puzzle. We're going to take a look at sorry. There we go. We're going to take a look at formulas and functions. We're going to, oh no, there we go. A formula is a A formula is a mathematical relationship or rule expressed in symbols. And a function is a preset formula in Excel that is intended to carry out a specific calculation in which it is located. So, for example, you can do the same thing with you can do many of the same things that functions do with formulas. The functions just happen to be built in, and that makes it easier for you to use them if you know what you're looking for. A formula is an expression that returns a value. Obviously, 2 plus 2 equals 4. That is a formula. And then, of course, it can get more complicated than that. It is written using operators that combine different values, resulting in single displayed value. And so that means you write a formula using the plus sign, the minus sign, the multiplication sign, the division sign, the explanation sign, the parentheses, and it follows the order of operations, and that's really important to remember. To enter a formula, you click on a cell where you want the results to appear. You type equal, you type the equal button. And then you type an expression that calculates a value using cell references and arithmetic operators. Cell references allow you to change values used in the calculation without having to modify the formula itself. Enter or tab to complete the formula. Now that is a very complex way of talking about it. Let's open up. We're going to go back to Excel. But it works the same way in all of them. I'm going to delete all this. So let's say we wanted a very simple formula, right? Now we could set it up so that it says 2 plus. I've got 2's in there. I could make a formula. Hold on, wait. I could totally make a formula that says 2 plus 2. There. And now you'll notice that it says 4 in the box, in the cell, but up here it says 2 plus 2. So it shows you the formula. Now, we don't want to do formulas like that in Excel because they can't be changed. Like, we would have to click on the thing and we'd have to go up here to the formula bar, and it's not a very useful formula. So instead, what we're going to do is we're going to delete that, and we're going to come over here and we're going to say equals, and then we're going to click Control. We're going to click on a cell, and then we're going to click on another cell. And now we've got 2 cells in there, and we're going to say that we want whatever the value is in those 2 cells to be added together. Whoops. And I added another cell, and I did not want that, so we're going to hit Enter. Now you'll notice that it says 0, but that's because there's nothing in the cells that we set up as our cell references, right? There's nothing in them. So if I type in 2, now it's 2, because technically it is 2 plus 0 equals 2, right? If I put in another 2, now it says 4, because now it is saying this number plus this number equals this number. And we want to do that. We want to set it up that way so that if we change the variables in our formula, we don't have to change the formula itself. So that means that if I had a problem that was, some huge number plus 2, that was not a good example because it changed the formatting. Okay, fine. There. See? Now it's 1,000, it's 1 million plus 2. And we want to set it up that way so that it can be iterated on. That's the brilliance of Excel, is that you don't have to go in and tweak everything all the time. You can set it up so that it gives you the answer when you put in the information. Whoops. Okay, here we go. I alluded to this earlier, but remember that the order of precedence is important, the order of operations. So when you were in school, you learned, what is that? Please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. Parentheses, division, exponents I may be wrong. Anyways, you don't want me explaining math to you, but you probably remember that there was an order of operations. So keep that in mind, that it will follow that order of operations. So, for example, if you need something to be subtracted then multiplied, you're going to need to put the two cells in that are subtracting from each other. You're going to need to put those in parentheses so that they can then be multiplied. To view a formula, you just select the cell and it'll show up in the formula bar. And then if your formula is referencing a cell, they will be color coded and they'll be color coded and highlighted. So, for example, if I pull up my Excel again, you'll notice that when I click on here and I click up in the formula, the two cells are color coded. The D4 is blue, and it goes with the cell over here. The E4 is red, and it goes with the cell over here. And if we did more, they would all be color coded as well. And it's super useful because it helps you find what you're working with. All right. So one of the brilliant things about Excel is that they've had, and all three of these programs, is that they've set it up so that it is as intuitive as it could possibly be. Which means that when you are working with large amounts of information and you need them all to be treated the exact same way, it is super duper easy to repeat the formula. So, for example, let's pull up my Excel sheet, and again, it works the same way in all three programs. I just don't want to have to redo my formula in all of them. So if I come in here and I say, okay, well, I'm doing some sort of data entry, right? And so I'm saying, okay, well, I've got these numbers and I need them all to be added together. Yeah, I could go through and I could do, I could set up, I could go through and set up formulas for each of them. For a row of information, or for columns of information this small, it would not be that difficult. However, if I had thousands of equations that needed to be done, you wouldn't want to do that. So what's great about Excel and these programs, these spreadsheet programs, is that you can copy the formula and move it where you need it to be moved, and it's intuitive enough that it can figure out how its new location changes things. So, for example, you'll notice that right now it is this plus this, right? If it wasn't intuitive, when I moved the formula here, it would still be adding this plus this, right? But because it's intuitive, watch what happens. Wow, it changes. So the formula went from being D4 plus E4 to D5 plus E5. And guess what? If I keep doing it, it will do that for all of these. So this one is now D9 plus E9. And it will keep doing that. I could, I don't have numbers in these, but like this one down here is D27 plus E27. And it saves you, that can save you 1,000,000 years of work. And all three programs work the exact same way. So some tips to help you write effective formulas. Keep them simple. Do not hide data values within formulas. Unless you need, I don't know, if you need everything from your formulas to have -5 on them for some reason, like that, just try to keep as much visible as you can, or you'll sometimes your formulas will break and it'll be very difficult to figure out what the problem is. Break up your formulas to show intermediate results. So like if you have a really complex formula, maybe do like half of it and then do the second half of it, and that way you do half of it in one cell and then do half of it in the second cell and reference the first formula so that it That way, if there's an issue, it will be easier to pinpoint where the issue is. So, these aren't required, but they will certainly help. So that's all I have for today. I hope that it was instructive. I hope that if you needed help with these 3 programs, that this was useful. I hope you have a good rest of your day, and I hope that you're staying healthy. Thank you. Goodbye.